What is up, everyone? JD here. Hope you're all doing well today. Today I'm going to be doing my long-term update and disassembly maintenance video for the Spyderco Smock. It has been a little bit longer because this particular model is quite involved in doing. If you're not familiar, it has a double detent ball system where it does lock it. The first detent ball locks it into place, and then the second detent ball also locks it into place. The second ball has a spring that pushes it into the blade, which gives this more of a controlled operation to mimic what it would feel like on phosphor bronze washers. So if you remove that second ball, which is a very popular mod, it does become very guillotine fall shut, very, very smooth. But that second detent ball with that ceramic bearing really gives this a very smooth operation. So having said that, it is spring loaded. You're going to need to keep that in mind when you go to disassemble and clean your smock. The scales that come on the factory smock usually have the matching bullet holes and the lanyard hole. You will have to contend with that. I won't be able to duplicate that in this video, but I have found that that lanyard barrel fits more loosely on the Taiwan knives than they do on the American knives. So when you go to take them off of the PM2 or the Para 3, they are a little bit tighter, and you do have to kind of work them off because they're lipped. But I have found when they come from Taiwan, their tolerances are better, meaning that they're not lipped so bad that you're not going to be able to get them off. What you're going to need is a T8. All of the bits that I use are linked at the very bottom. So when you go down, I have like recommended knives. Go down a little bit further, you'll see recommended tools, and you'll see the Weeha bits. You'll see the stubby bit driver, which is a great tool if you don't have a set of tools. I like the longer ones because I have bigger hands, so the length actually suits me a little bit better. But I have found that that stubby works nice because it does fill out, but it kind of gets me close, and I have a little bit of a hard time kind of seeing what I'm doing because my hands get so close. And since I'm doing this on video, looking through the camera, I do go ahead and use the longer tools to kind of get my hands away from it. All right, going ahead and saying that as well, make sure you have a little bit of Loctite for this one. I am going to be installing the Loctite on here after I do that because it does tend to want to move. And then make sure you have your favorite oil. This is the Hops lubricant applicator, but you can add any oil to this if the oil that you like to use doesn't come with an applicator, or if you want to buy the larger refill. T8 in the center, T6 hardware. I usually go ahead and loosen the pivot first. I don't know that there's a right or wrong way, but I do just get this going, loosening it up a little bit. You can see I have the Loctite on there, so it is very snug. And then I go ahead and remove all of the T6 hardware here on the standoffs, setting them aside. And this holder is also, or this mat holder, this mat is linked way down below as well. And the reason that I like to use these is because it does have the little compartments that you can set your hardware in so you can keep track of it and not lose it. And then it also has a place for you to kind of set your tools down so they're out of the way. With both those hardwares removed, you're going to go ahead and remove the pivot bolt. And as you can see there, that thing is caked up with Loctite. And the reason for that is because being that it is shorter, I do find that it takes a little bit more to keep it from backing out on its own. Now, this does not have a spring. This is a compression lock with a thumb tab integrated from the factory on it, so the spring is not going to jump out. You're going to be dealing with a lot when you take this scale off, so go ahead and start to work your scale off of the knife. Did I grab all the bolts yet? Oh, this thing is on here tight. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's see here. I'm trying to see if that's, yeah, there's Loctite everywhere on it. So you see how it has a couple of pins here. So you have your stop pin here in the back for the compression lock. That's what compresses it down between, the lock sits between this pin and the back of the blade here. And then you also have your stop pin here for the blade as well. So there's two different stop pins. The compression lock stops it, the stop pin stops it. There's a lot going on with this knife. Now that you have the skeleton here, you can go ahead and start to work it off as well. It is going to be, again, the tolerances are snug on the Spydercos, so you're going to want to kind of just work it back and forth until it comes off. And once it comes off, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. You see that stop pin there? It really is the track for your knife, and you can see this is quite grimy and dusty and dirty, so we're definitely due. Like I said, I went a little bit longer because I know this one here has a lot more going on. You're going to want to push your pin down and slowly work your knife back because you do not want to lose this detent ball. So that, I'll zoom in there. Your detent ball is sitting in there, and it is not going to go anywhere, so you can reassemble it, but you just have to be really careful when you go to do that. I always cover it whenever I start moving things around, so I'm going to go ahead, cover it, and take out the other Rocket Glide skiff bearing or skiff Rocket Glide bearing, and now I'm going to go ahead and start with cleaning everything. I'm going to start with the blade, just dry cloth cleaning and seeing if that gets it cleaned. If it doesn't, I'll grab a little bit of rubbing alcohol, squirt it on the actual blade itself, on the cloth itself, not the blade itself, and just kind of let it dry for a second and then clean it, because I don't want the diamond nitrate coating, which it shouldn't, but I don't want it to, and you can see this is very, very grimy because I have been carrying it a little bit longer, like a month or two longer than, probably even longer than that. It's probably been 6 months since I actually disassembled and cleaned it, and I carry this often enough, fidget with it often enough, and I cut with it often enough to justify cleaning it a little bit sooner. So I'll try to show you all the tracks here. You see you got that secondary detent ball track, and then the first one, very unique system and how it works. That helps control and lock it in place, but also keeps it very controlled, opening and closing it. And then you have the track wearing in the middle from the skiffs. Then here, you will hear this wobble. Where is it? You will hear this wobbling. Oh, I don't have it near the microphone. You can't hear that. Because it's meant to drop into place, but it's fairly... it's not as tight a tolerance on that one. So we'll go ahead and clean all of this hardware off on here. Make sure you're careful that that doesn't, if it falls out, you just got to put it back in place, but I try to keep everything in place. These scales look like they also have a very similar diamond nitrate plate coating on the plate. So that's very, very nice. Everything looks like it's coming relatively clean from a dry wipe. But again, if you feel like you need the rubbing alcohol, go ahead and do so. I'm trying to do this where you guys can kind of see, just giving it a nice clean all the way around since it's been a little bit longer. I appreciate your patience, because if you're just looking to see how I went about the reassembly, I can understand that, and my detent ball has moved. So I'm just going to set it aside because I don't want to lose it. We'll put it back in just a second, and I'll show you how I reassemble this thing with that detent ball. That thing is tricky for sure. All right, so I'm just going to clean around this detent ball, going to clean around the pivot, and it is a D-shaped pivot, which is nice because it keeps it from moving around. My stop pin has fallen off. Lord have mercy. Just having all the issues today, I tell you. This also is D-shaped. This compression pin, the pin for the compression lock, is D-shaped as well, so that it doesn't move around. But there's a whole lot of engineering that went into this particular knife. So the flat part faces the it's in there, but it faces the compression lock. Lord have mercy, I don't know what's wrong with me today. I have the mic in a different position because I actually wanted to look under the camera today. So we're ready at this point to go ahead and reassemble. You can clean your pivot bolt off in advance of reinstalling it too, to make sure that that's ready to go. But we're gonna go ahead and put a couple of drops down. Whoa, that was a little bit more than I'm used to using. We'll go ahead, reinstall the Rocket Glide, go ahead and get your detent ball. Try to set that in place the best that you can. With large hands, it's going to be a little bit hard, and Lord have mercy, you don't want to lose it unless you're just removing it. If you're removing it, then that is fine. My large fingers, you're going to see how much of a struggle this is. Everything's going to fall out. Let me put this back in place. And instead of flipping it over this time, I'm just going to try to pick it back up. All right. All right. So if you have a magnetic tool, I just learned something myself today. You can get it back in place. Be careful not to bump this a lot. I'm actually trying to set it in this little groove here, which is not really leveling it, but I'm trying to set it in that groove to make sure that it stays in place. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to just drop a couple of drops. I'm going to do smaller since I did big drops on the other side here. On this side, there we go. And then I'm just going to put a couple of drops there and just right in front of the track. You don't have to go the whole way, but just enough to kind of make it feel smooth in operation. This next part, you're going to want to put everything, you're going to want to push the compression lock down just a little to help it slide in, and you're going to want to gently go down with the knife and make sure that you feel it fall on that detent ball. Once you have that detent ball kind of sandwich, you're pretty secure, but you're still going to want to make sure you're not like rough with the knife. Go ahead and put a couple drops here for your bearings. And again, that's just to keep it nice and smooth. And then I just put a little, there you go, just a little bit on the detent ball itself. Putting that back on, you want to go ahead, well, you may want to, totally up to you, but I also do both sides of the bearings. So I'm putting a little bit on where it tracks here. So just be patient with this, because getting this back together, you don't want to make too sudden or hard of movements, because the blade will move up. We're going to push the compression lock in. We're going to manhandle a little bit there, not too much. I bumped the camera, sorry. That standoff in the back, and then we're going to reinstall this. I'm looking for the D shape. We're going to reinstall this backwards, going through the hole. There we go. So I've never done it like that before. So on camera, you're seeing that I'm actually learning different strategies on reassembly. So everything should be pretty secure. What I would do at this point, I would start with the T6 hardware, get that in and going. Once you get these two down, I would snug them up to keep that pin from moving out if you're trying to save it. That is snug. And then I would install both of these, and then go ahead and install your pivot bolt last. So that'll keep this from coming apart so much that it can sneak out. I'm going to clean this off, and then we will Loctite it, make sure it's centered, has the appropriate amount of play, and go from there. Let's see, that should be relatively clean. I didn't have as much as I thought on there. I definitely thought it looked like more originally. So go ahead and put your Loctite on, and remember, when you do Loctite, you want 24 to 48 hours of not using the knife, which is a shame, because I actually was going to carry this today, but I realized I really am overdue for this, so I will pick up something else to carry. That looks good. I can't really see that great through the camera, but I'm just going to make sure that I'm carefully pulling this all together. And you can tell, because there's no, you see there, even on both sides, that pin is still in there. So I'm going to go all the way tight by hand. And then I'm going to back it out slightly. And quickly as I can, going to check the centering, dead center, no side to side. It's a little snug though. It's a little snug. I can tell by the action. A little bit more controlled. Yeah. Hopefully you can see dead center. Everything's back in place. Detent feels good. Everything looks like it's lined up nicely. There's no gaps anywhere. Let me check the side to side. Side to side feels good. Yeah. With that secondary detent ball, it looks like it's easy to fail, but if you give it, a light enough flick and it still flies open, I mean, not flies open, it'll still roll open gingerly, and you're not feeling that side to side on the smock with that secondary detent ball. Yeah, no play. That secondary detent ball, that'll get you where you want to be with this particular knife. So you see that when I was talking about the tolerance on that pin, you can really hear it move around. One way to cure that, if you wanted to, you could put a little bit of lithium grease underneath the head of that and install it so that it's catching only on the outside of the scale and not on the inside where it goes across the knife. You can get rid of that noise. In all honesty, it doesn't bother me personally, so I just leave it be. Hopefully this has helped you if you have a smock and you're interested in the maintenance of it, and if you have a magnetic tip, which this Kershaw tool offers, that'll help you with that detent ball. Or if you're looking to remove that detent ball, make sure you store it somewhere safely, because some people won't buy it if you go to sell it later without that detent ball. So you're going to want to save the spring of the detent ball somewhere where you can find it. But it makes it guillotine fall shut versus controlled. So you see there, it is falling shut, but if you do catch it to where, you see what I'm saying? The detent ball keeps it from free falling when combined with the compression lock detent ball. So it also improves the detent from a deployment. It makes it feel snappy because both of them work in conjunction with each other. So that's one of the, two of the reasons really that I leave it in there. I'd like that control shut. I can control it. It's not going to bounce. It's going to be very controllable, but it's still very smooth. Anyway, leave a like if you enjoyed the video and if it helped you. If you're enjoying the content, consider subscribing. I'd love to have you follow along. Thanks to everyone out there that has supported the channel, leaves the comments regularly, and likes. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you have a fantastic week, and until next time, peace.